Hello, my name is Mrs. Bartholomew Tetley Jones, and I am here to present to you a fantastic experience, the reading and performance of Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, brought to you by Riverside Unified School District's Visual and Performing Arts Department. Enjoy.
"I'm sure those are not the right words," said poor Alice, her eyes filled with tears again as she went on. "I must be Mabel after all. I shall have to go and live in that poky little house, have next to no toys to play with, and, oh dear, ever so many lessons to learn. No, I've made up my mind about it. If I'm Mabel, I'll stay down here. It'll be no use their putting their heads down and saying, 'Come up again, dear.' I shall only say, 'Who am I, then? Tell me that first.' Then if I like being that person, I'll come up. If not, I'll stay down here till I'm somebody else." "But oh dear," cried Alice with a sudden burst of tears, "I do wish they would put their heads down. I'm so very tired of being all alone here." As she said this, she looked down at her hands, and was surprised to see she had put on one of the rabbit's little white kid gloves while she was talking. "How could I have done that?" she thought. "I must be growing small again." She got up and went to the table to measure herself by it, and found that, as nearly as she could guess, she was now about 2 feet high and was going on shrinking rapidly. She soon found out that the cause of this was the fan she was holding. She dropped it hastily, just in time to save herself from shrinking away altogether. "That was a narrow escape," said Alice, a good deal frightened at the sudden change, but very glad to still find herself in existence. And now for the garden. She ran with all speed back to the little door, but alas, the little door was shut again, and the little golden key was lying on the glass table as before. "And now things are worse than ever," thought the poor child, "for I never was so small as this before. Never! I declare it too bad, that it is." As she said these words, her foot slipped, and in another moment, splash! Alice was up to her chin in salt water. Her first thought was that she had somehow landed in the sea. "And in that case, I can go back to the railway station," she said to herself. Alice had been to the seaside once in her life, and come to the general conclusion that wherever you go on the English coast, you find a number of bathing machines in the sea, some children digging in the sand with wooden spades, then a row of lodging houses, and behind that, the railway station. However, she soon made it out. She was in a pool of tears, which she had wept when she was 9 feet high. "I wish I hadn't cried so much," said Alice as she swam about, trying to find her way out. "I shall be punished for it now, I suppose, by being drowned in my own tears. That will be a queer thing for sure. However, everything is queer today." Just then, she heard something splashing in a pool near off. She swam nearer to make out what it was. At first, she thought it must be a walrus or hippopotamus, but then she remembered how small she was now, and soon figured out that it was a mouse that had slipped in like herself. "Would it be any of use now," thought Alice, "to speak to this mouse? Everything is so out of the way down here that I should think very likely it can talk. At any rate, there's no harm in trying." So she began. "Oh, mouse, do you know the way out of this pool? I am very tired of swimming about here. Oh, mouse!" Alice thought this must be the right way to speak to a mouse. She'd never done such a thing before, but she remembered having seen her brother's Latin grammar. "A mouse. Of a mouse. To a mouse. A mouse. Oh, "Oh, mouse." The mouse looked at her rather inquisitively, and seemed to her to wink with one of its little eyes, but said nothing. "Perhaps it doesn't understand English," thought Alice. "I dare say it's a French mouse that came over with William the Conqueror." For with all her knowledge of history, Alice had no very clear notion of how anything had happened. So she began again. "Oh, ma chatte," which was the first sentence in her French lesson book. The mouse gave a sudden leap out of the water and seemed to quiver with fear. "Oh, I beg your pardon," cried Alice, hastily, afraid she had hurt the poor animal's feelings. "I quite forgot she didn't like cats." "Not like cats," cried the mouse in a shrill, passionate voice. "Would you like cats if you were me?" "Well, perhaps not," said Alice in a soothing tone. "Don't be angry about it. And yet, I wish I could show you our cat Dinah. I think you'd take a fancy to cats. If you could only see her. She's such a dear, quiet thing," Alice went on, half to herself, as she swam lazily about in the pool. "And she sits purring nicely by the fire, licking her paws and washing her face. She's such a soft thing to nurse. And she's such a capital one for catching mice." "Oh, I beg your pardon," cried Alice again, for this time the mouse was bristling all over. She felt certain it must be really offended. "We won't talk about her any more if you'd rather not." "We indeed," cried the mouse, who was trembling to the end of his tail. "As if I would talk on such a subject. Our family hated cats. Such nasty, low, vulgar things. Don't let me hear the name again." "I won't indeed," said Alice, in a great hurry to change the subject of conversation. Are you fond of dogs?" The mouse did not answer, so Alice went on eagerly. "There's such a nice little dog near our house. I would like to show you. A little bright-eyed terrier, you know, with, oh, such long, brown, curly hair. And it'll fetch things when you throw them, and it'll sit up and beg for its dinner, and all sorts of things. I can't remember half of them. It belongs to a farmer, you know, and he says it's so useful. It's worth £100. He says it kills all the rats and—" "Oh, dear!" cried Alice in a sorrowful tone. "I'm afraid I offended it again." For the mouse was swimming away from her as hard as it could go, making quite a commotion in the pool as it went. She called softly after it. "Mouse, dear, do come back again. We won't talk about cats or dogs either if you don't like them." When the mouse heard this, it turned round and swam slowly back to her. Its face was quite pale, with passion, Alice thought, and it said in a low, trembling voice, "Let us go to the shore. Then I'll tell you my history. You'll understand why it is I hate cats and dogs." It was high time to go, for the pool was getting quite crowded with birds and animals that had fallen into it. There was a duck, and a dodo, a lory, and an eaglet, and several other curious creatures. Alice led the way as they all swam to shore.